It's like when Adrian said "win" to Rocky and Rocky
Yeah,
Two.
just win.
That gives me the chills. So that's what I did. So I spoke into the book. I had my friend Steve Porter. He helped me write it. But I wrote it so that it gave me credibility.
Mhm.
So not the money goes to Bradley Hospital. I don't make any money in the book.
Which I credential all the doctors for that hospital, by the way. Thank you.
They're fabulous people, by the way.
Yeah, they are.
And I speak at the reunion every year. I love going there. And that's how it started. And then I really wanted to speak. Now, being afraid to speak in public is something somebody says, why did you get into sales if you were afraid to leave your house? Why are you speaking in public if you're afraid to speak in public? Because, as Rocky said, there's something still in the basement.
Yeah. Oh, I love that scene.
Oh,
Don't you tear up watching
don't
that
even
scene?
start, because it's on my phone.
It's
There's something still. Remember when Paulie's in the alley with him?
Yep.
And he says, Rock.
This beast.
This
I remember.
beast.
Yep, I remember.
And it's true.
Yeah.
I needed something to give me anxiety, to give me that feeling of, you can do this.
Yeah.
Get off the mat.
You need
can
to
do
share
it.
this.
It
Get up.
sounds-
One more round.
Sorry, it's the way it is. It's the way you're built.
I live by the belief, I guess if I had a mantra, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to live outside of your comfort zone to expand yourself, to see what you're capable of.
Yeah.
And I actually have some of the things I want to go over tonight are specifically about that. But yeah, no, I think if you stay within your comfort zone, you never realize your full potential. And I think the way I perceive this, you writing this book was something you had to do, not for any other reason than to prove to yourself that you I think it's different when you see this. I'm sure you talking about it is one thing, but to see someone like myself, like I know we've talked about the impact this book had on me.
Yeah.
I let my father read this book. I'm hoping, and I know for a fact, there's several people that are listening to this podcast that have already purchased your book because they want to read it now.
Steve, I'm going to interrupt you and say, when I wrote that book and it went out, and my wife will attest to this, I got stopped in everywhere we went, most of the time. It's almost like I came out of the closet.
Yeah.
And there's 3 guys that are bigger than I am that were crying because they couldn't believe that I went through that.
Yeah.
And it was almost like, oh my God, he did it? So it was okay for them to say, wow, I've been through that crap. I mean, everybody's got fear. Everybody's anxious.
Yeah.
Everybody's got that crap. But agoraphobia and panic and anxiety and panic attacks, it's scary shit.
Yeah. See, you had it a little bit different than me. Like you had agoraphobia. I used to just get like the IBS. I would, my family was in Staten Island my whole life growing up, so we'd go to New York a couple times a year. We would stay down in the basement. Me and my brother, there was a fold-out couch. Me and my brother would stay down there. My sister would get the bedroom up on the 3rd floor, and I would be up all night, nauseous, sick, shaking like a leaf. Now I got my big brother right next to me. I never wanted to say anything. I was embarrassed.
Sure.
My whole childhood was like that. I remember I used to wake my mother up, and we laugh about it now.
Yeah.
I used to wake my mother up when I feel sick, and I never got sick, but I would shake like a leaf and want to throw up, but I would never get sick. I was having panic attacks for over a decade. I'm talking like every single night of the week. So we had 2 different physical reactions, 2 different things psychologically going on, but just this debilitating thing. And then I would just be exhausted the next day. It's like there was nothing left.
The thing is about a panic attack is when you have a panic attack, when you have an anxiety attack is mental, not quite physical, but more mental than anything else. When you have a panic attack, it affects you mentally and physically. So like when you're planes, okay, it's funny, like, in fact, yesterday I had a friend of mine come in, he says, I didn't know you didn't like elevators. That's not what I was afraid of. It wasn't the elevator, it wasn't the tunnel, it wasn't the bridge, it wasn't the car. It was the fact of your feeling while you're in the elevator and what's going to happen. What would happen if?
Yeah.
It's the what ifs and the yeah buts and the constant doubt of what is the matter with me. When you realize what it is, okay, that's what it is. Now, being the fix-it kind of guy, it was up to me to fix it. Nobody was going to fix it but me.
No, they couldn't.
No, they couldn't do it.
And that's the hardest part about something like this, something psychological.
Yeah.
Is, like, I don't know about you, I'm not a medication guy. I at all costs, I try to avoid them just because I know every time you take something that's foreign to the human body, it's depleting something else. So you fix one thing, you create another. So I try to avoid them as much as I can. And it's hard when you realize that you have to fight this thing, and you can't see it, you can't punch it, you can't choke it out, you can't lock the door on it.
It's funny you say that because I used to say I'd rather fight 4 guys And after I told my wife what was wrong with me, because I found out that day, that infomercial, and we both cried together, and I said, you know what, honey, I'd rather fight 4 guys, because I knew what was in front of me, even if I lost.
Yep, didn't matter.
Because this thing in my head is worse than anything. People ask me about this COVID. Again, not to go on a tangent, but they ask about the COVID. I did a Cox commercial. I don't know if you saw it. It's a 30-minute segment on Cox.
I can't tell you the last time I watched cable, and I paid for it.
I didn't either. We were doing an interview on a radio show in Massachusetts. And we were going and going. She said it's going to be about 5-10 minutes. And all of a sudden it turned into a 30-minute segment that aired on Channel 3 Cox. And it aired for about a month. It's on my website.
Yeah, no, it's...
And it was all about COVID, how I'm handling COVID. And some people, I get message like you, I'm sure, on Facebook, which social media we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
But, and it was almost like I was making fun of it. And that was not my intent. My intent was to say, COVID? Okay, we have the smartest people in the world working on it, scientists, and all over the world, not just in this one.
Yeah.
What I had, I didn't know. So I thought there was no cure. I thought I was essentially going to end up in a mental institution. So when I heard about COVID, I'm afraid for my kids, I'm afraid for my family, I'm afraid for me, I'm afraid for everybody. But we're going to find a cure. We're going to fix it.
Yeah.
So people wanted me to roll up in a ball and start crying, and it wasn't that, it was okay. Let's wear a mask, let's do what we're supposed to do, and let's take care of it.
Yeah, you know what it is. You know
we know what
you
it's
know how to
called.
defend yourself against it.
Correct.
Psychological and mental health issues are completely different. The horrible truth about them is up until you figure out what it is, you don't know when it's coming, you don't know what's causing it, you know how long it's going to last, you know what the repercussions are going to be,
Right.
and you don't know if you're going to survive it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I used to look at it that way. Like those were my 5 concerns, and those 5 concerns alone, if you're not having an episode, will conjure one up. So
Well, if you have one here, you think you're going to have one here.
Yeah.
And then you want to go to the post office, you don't want to get a haircut, you don't want to go to the bank. And
I
you don't
used
want
to,
yeah.
I used to look at it as, like if you drank Southern Comfort, you when you're 17 years old to the point where you threw up, you never wanted to drink Southern Comfort again.
Right.
Any time and place you had an attack, an episode, you never want to reenact.
That's
you don't
right.
want to do those things again. Go to those places again. It happened to me at the Twin. What's the steakhouse? Cedar Steakhouse in Foxwoods.
Okay.
An ex-girlfriend had taken me there for my birthday one night, and I remember we were just sitting down at dinner. It was very loud. I never liked crowds. Anytime I was in a crowd when I was younger, you're drunk. You're at a concert, you're at whatever. And I just remember all of a sudden it was like she was quarter mile away. Everything around me was vibrating, and I could hear everything going on except her. I got up, I walked out of the restaurant. I almost threw up in the. I had a panic attack. I didn't know what it was back then. We just got to pay the bill and get out of here. I just want to go home. And I remember we got in the car. I felt a little bit better. Pulled out of the parking garage, felt a little bit better. Once I got to 95, I felt fine because I knew I was heading home.
Sure.
And it was like that for my whole childhood. Anytime I traveled, that's why. And I feel terrible because my wife wants to go to Italy so bad, and I want to take her. And now I'm much different now, but then you get 9/11. So like my brain still goes to these things. I think about what's the extreme thing that could possibly happen, and that's where my brain still goes.
Well, you could do one of 2 things, Steve. Not trying to, and I say
No,
this,
please, no.
I say this all the time.
I need to grow
I'm
some
not
balls.
no, because it's real.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's real. You saw it. It sucks. You can either live with fear, or, as you said, you can be comfortable in uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
If you asked me 10, 12, 15 years ago, would I ever get on a plane and go to Europe? I would not only laugh, I'd probably just turn around and walk away.
Yeah.
So last year, for the first time, we flew to Europe. I went to Italy. We took a cruise through Greek islands. The best vacation.
Exactly what she wants to do.
The best vacation I ever had. Now, if you go to my Facebook page, I show, and I'm not a look at me kind of guy. It's more, it's all inspirational. And unfortunately, and I'm always told to, be more active on social media. I don't want to do that. I just rather put up things to help people. And I get message all the time in texts and emails. In fact, I got one yesterday. And it's more of, look at me. Look what I've been through. Read my book and use my tools. Here I am in Europe.
Yeah.
And I took pictures. Going up, it was a chairlift to get to the top. Can't remember where it was. to get to the top of a mountain. I'm on a chairlift going up in Italy to the top of the mountain. Do you realize, I took pictures of it, I wouldn't, first of all, I'm in Italy. Second of all, I'm on a cruise ship. And now I'm on a chairlift.
I read your story about the chairlift.
Oh, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wildcat Mountain. Okay. Brianna, my hand to God, I had a panic attack on the chairlift on Wildcat Mountain about 4 or 5 years ago. I had like several. And the time it took us to get to the summit all the way to... I can tell you what we'll do. We'll do dinner one night.
Sure.
We'll get together. I'll let Brianna tell you that story.
All right.
Because what came out of my mouth when I was trying to distract myself what was going on, I don't know what the hell I was talking about. I made up this whole story. I was just talking, over-talking, just to distract myself from being 55 feet off the ground.
Yep.
I was freaking the hell out. But Wildcat Mountain, New Hampshire, I had the same goddamn thing. I'll never forget. She never lets me live it down. I mean, she understands what it is. But
how are you now with this? You mentioned medication before. We'll talk about that. But you talk about medication, steroids, things like that. When I was growing up in the 80s, everybody was taking steroids in my gym. I own gyms, as you know. And everybody took them.
Mm-hmm.
When I say everybody, the guy, the monsters.
Well, they were somewhat legal back then. Like, they weren't banned or anything.
And everybody thought I was taking them. They still do.
Yeah.
I'm 59 years old. I'm taking steroids. And I used to say, until they read my book, I'm like, do you realize what it was like having what I had, thinking I'm going to put something in my body?
Oh, inject yourself with something? What are you, nuts?
A pill, injection. I didn't take aspirins because I thought it was going to chemically do something.
You didn't know
to my
what
head.
was going to have an interaction.
So, So I fully understand that about medication and any supplements. Yeah, I took protein powder and stuff like that. But I never ever got into, even today. I just can't do it.
No, and I can vouch for this because you've been this handsome and muscular for 27 years.
Ever the salesman, but that's okay.
You're lucky I'm married.
I'm going to be honest with you. I go to gyms, and you've seen my gym downstairs. And I train downstairs. I train by myself, and I still like to lift heavy. But I'm lifting heavy for the same reason I lifted heavy without even knowing it. It's not to walk around and say, look at me. It's because it helps me here. And knowing that for the split second or those 5 seconds of intense training, it's all I'm thinking about is moving that weight. And still to this day, and I concern myself, even my son says, Dad, because he trains, he says, Dad, why don't you lighten up, just do reps? And now he knows, I won't do it.
Yeah.
And
So I believe people like you and I, you either realize that you have a calling or you don't. Mm-hmm. Prior to airing this and recording, Brian and I had a conversation. One of the things I always envisioned myself doing was going to high schools, talking to kids before they get to that 18-year-old point where you're at that, your mistakes really become long-term at that point. Mm-hmm. I always felt that was what I was meant to do.
Right.
I enjoy public.
Sure.
We're on the complete end of the spectrum.
You love it.
I enjoy public speaking. There are other things that my fear and anxiety kick in. Mm-hmm. But I always picture myself doing something like that along those lines. And my whole life, as a career salesman, you built this empire on sales. I never wanted to be a salesman. My whole life, people tried to tell me, you should be in sales, you should be in sales. I'm like, I don't know, I enjoy learning about people and helping people. I never found the correlation for me between that and sales.
I can tell you something, Stephen. Everybody's a salesman. And people say, what do you do? I'm in sales. What do you do? I'm in sales. What do you do? I'm this and that. You're always selling.
You sell yourself every day.
You're selling every single day. So when people say, I'm a salesman, okay, so I carry a briefcase, I have a card, and I'm selling a product. You're selling yourself. You talked to me, and you said, I want to come in and do a podcast with you. Okay, well, if you had a different approach, sure, I know you. You're a friend of mine. We've known each other for years. Mm-hmm. If you had a different approach, I'd probably say, I'm a little busy. I don't have the time. But because of your personality, you're a born salesman. And my kids, when they were young, we used to go through Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru. So you were 5 and 7 years old. And I used to say, tip or no tip? Because the person on the other end, in the microphone, they go, hi, can I help you? My kids are like, tip daddy, big quarter or whatever. Yeah. But if they get on, the microphone, they go, yep, can I help you or whatever? No tip daddy, no tip. So they learned at an early age, that's selling.
Yeah.
That's what selling is. It's your personality. So I do believe that if you're successful in life, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a landscaper or whatever it might be, you're always selling. And you don't have to verbalize it. Mm. It could be your work. You could look outside at a beautiful landscape. That's selling.
Yeah. Well, you said it too. Before you even got to the appointment.
Mhm.
Once you got to the appointment, you were competing against 1,200 other companies who were selling similar products. And that's where I agree with you 1,000%. Is you're selling yourself every day, every minute, every interaction you have, grocery store, wherever you go, because how many different products, similar products, being sold by the same companies all over the place.
Here's a plastic bottle. This is what I do for people that don't know. A broker of plastic containers. So there are probably, and I'm doing a water bottle, but everybody makes their own water bottles. But I could pick up a bottle and show.
Autocrat was one of your first big
One of my
accounts, right?
accounts, yeah, they were in Rhode Island.
Yep.
It's funny how they were in Rhode Island. They were one of my first
Smithfield, right?
accounts. Yep.
Yep.
And that's because it was so close to home.
Yeah.
But do you know how many people were in there? So I used to go in differently because I was a mechanic. So I knew how to fix molds, how to fix problems. So I used to go in, finally get there, and after my jitters and all that stuff, and I used to say to them, I'm not trying to break up a relationship, because that's what my type of selling is.
Yeah.
It's not car salesman. It's not being a salesman, walk into Sears, you're buying a washing machine. You're going into a company and trying to break up a relationship.
Mhm.
So my way of breaking up a relationship was give me your problems. And that's how it started with me trying to fix things. Give me your problems. I don't want to start price gouging. I don't want to say I could beat you on price. My overhead was my bedroom. I could beat a lot of people on price.
Yeah.
Buy from A, sell to C, I'm the B.
Cure their
It was
headaches.
more of give me your headaches
Mhm.
and let me see if I can solve the problem. Once you do that, you'd be amazed that all of a sudden, hey, here's another thing, here's another thing.
Yeah.
And slowly but surely, that's how I built this up.
You could have been my father, because when I was in the store, people would come in. Like if you walked in, I didn't know you. 10,000 times people come in. Hey, I'm here to grab this pre-workout. Okay. Oh, why were you taking it? Oh, my buddy said it helped him put some size on. I used to call it peeling the banana. I would ask all these questions, but each question was designed to lead me down a path, lead the customer down a path, which inevitably took them to where I wanted to be. And I would just ask all these revealing questions, and before I was done asking the third or fourth question, they were like, well, what else do you have? And I was just helping them see that, look, whatever your friend's purpose for taking this product was, doesn't have to be your purpose. Their goals are not your goals. Their genetics are not yours.
Right.
So I would just help them realize that we're having two different conversations. And that's why I was so successful in health and fitness. But it's similar process. I didn't match prices. I never got asked to price match. I established myself as this guy knows his shit. He knows health. He knows anatomy. He knows human body. He knows medical conditions. And that's where I kind of created my niche.
Yeah, in the same situation. And
Yeah.
I was a mechanic. So when I say the word isooscillator to you, what they're doing is you find a customer shaking their head like, I know what that is. They have no idea what it is.
I think a flux capacitor.
Yeah, there you go, right? But that's really what it is. You're telling them that, listen, I know what a 3/8 wrench is. I know what tooling is. I know what tool and die is. I know what extruder is. And most salesmen that are out there, they have a gorgeous suit. They're good looking. They have the briefcase, but they don't really know how to produce a container.
They know the pamphlet they're handing you.
Right. So
Yeah.
all I did was find another way in. That's really all it was. And my business it's a little different than most because it takes sometimes over a year to get into a customer.
Oh, I'm sure.
And that was my problem because most of the customers I had were in New York, New Jersey metropolitan area, all the way down to Turnpike into Maryland. So it was a constant struggle getting back to this book and, okay, great. And when I finally got into a customer like Hard to Grace, Maryland, most people be jumping up in the air. I'm like, yay! Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Now I got to get up and I got to deal with the tolls and
Your adrenaline has been 1,000 times over the legal limit for how many hours?
Forget it.
Just getting there.
Forget it. For getting there, when I knew it was next Monday, I had the shits for
You drove
3
yourself
days
crazy.
before, and I couldn't sleep, and I faked. I faked a lot of crap, and it was sometimes the beast, as I call it in the book, in the second book, which we'll talk about, but it got the better of me, and I hate to admit it, but I can now, that I used to make excuses, and there was a time when I took a tire iron and smashed my headlight. Because how do you go back and tell your wife, I couldn't make it? How come? I don't know. There's something wrong with me. I didn't. I made an excuse. I used to go to the airport, so the customer could hear the announcements.
Yeah.
Flight number 5. I'd say, hey, my flight got canceled. I can't make it. Things like that. And I got excuse after excuse, and I could sit here for hours and tell you those. But yeah, it wasn't fun.
I'm glad you brought all that up because I wanted. So now that I've read your book for the third time, um, obviously I know at this point we have more in common than I think either one of us were ever clued into. But I wanted to give you a couple of words that I would use to describe you when I was 15, going on 16 years old when I first met you. But what I want you to do is tell me, when I mention this word, I'd like for you to give me a rebuttal, like how you really view yourself. So these are just 5 words that I would use to describe you 27 years ago.
Am I going to be embarrassed here, or?
No.
All right. 27 years ago.
Confident,
No, not even close.
strong, not physically, just
Yes, because even though I was going through this, I still managed.
you
to
fought
do
it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
That's exactly the answer I was hoping you
Yeah.
would say.
Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
Fearless,
Again, cousin of strong, incredibly, you read the book, everybody knows this anxiety, panic, still did it.
yeah.
So I have to say yes.
No, I would agree with you 1,000% because to be where we are at this moment,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be, because despite, you fought and you fought and you fought and you never quit, and that's the biggest thing is so my entrance into healthcare, I worked with homeless veterans for about a year and a half as a way to get my foot in the door with healthcare. I was trying to reestablish myself after the supplement store, and I see so many people who had a bad day and their whole life unraveled after that. So folks like yourself, people like me, like I never expected to be, a homeowner, married, college educated, loosely an entrepreneur. I never anticipated all that stuff. So it's very easy when you have that one bad day to just let that become the rest of your life, and you didn't do that.
No, and that's part of the toolbox we can get into later if you'd like. But
Yeah, definitely.
don't let a bad day,
Mhm.
get you down. And it's more of when you've come from this place of horror, horrific thoughts of torment, and you get past it. You realize years later, okay, I've done it. And then you're on a motorcycle and you look at a bridge and you're going to your place in Chatham that you've done hundreds and hundreds of times, and you've done it and you're ready, and all of a sudden that thing comes back
That
again.
7 mile
what
bridge.
the hell's going on?
Yeah.
And then you realize what it is, and you use your tools, and you get back down to it again, but down to normal level of 1. But I'm gonna say fearless. I'm gonna say yes.
So I'm gonna say 3 phrases, and you tell me what movie this is from. 1 step, 1 punch, 1 round at a time.
No, it's got to be a Rocky.
Creed.
Creed. Okay, I was gonna say everything in my life is Rocky, so I
I know.
was gonna say. Okay, I like that.
But it's a perfect analogy because at your age, as a young man growing up, fighting this uphill battle, it's so much easier to just stay down and let life consume you. But you kept getting up. It takes so much more balls to get up and keep fighting and keep learning and keep figuring out the intricacies of your mind and what it's doing to you.
Well,
To
yeah.
me, that's you're the definition of courageous, fearless,
Thank you.
successful.
Thank you.
It's difficult.
It is, and you mentioned veterans before, and I want to touch on that because I was asked to speak at this place on the Cape for veterans about struggles and so on and so forth. And I said to the very nice woman, these veterans are going to listen to me speak about anxiety, panic, and agoraphobia. And here's this successful businessman who went through this, and here's these people I respect immensely, with parts of their bodies missing and mental and the PST and all the stuff. And I'm like, she says, Brian, your words will encourage them. And I couldn't imagine at the time, and she talked me into doing it because of this COVID mess. It never happened. We're going to do it again. But people don't realize, and I don't realize, and truth be told, that I didn't realize, okay, great, I got a good story, it's nice. And the reason I wrote the book, not to get off on a tangent.
No,
here.
go ahead. Tangents are great on podcasts.
Oh, okay, good. I don't know.
I got 9 hours of camera. Go ahead.
But no, a friend of mine was having some problems with his marriage, and everything. He's a very good friend of mine, and I've known him for years. I used to be a coach at Moses Brown, and I've known him for years, and everything he was describing was anxiety and panic. So I started to tell him my story, and he's sitting there with his mouth open because here I am, like you.
Yeah.
Confidence, this big guy. He coached all my kids. He drove to fly. He flew to Florida. All this. I said, Jeff, and I went through my story. And I can use his name because he's the one that told me you got to write this effing book. So I'm gonna write an effing book, and that's how it all started because he was involved with high school. He saw kids, he saw parents, he saw all this going on, and he said your story needs to get out there. So what happened was he talked me into it. I mean, this took a while. Now you know me; I'm a very private person.
Mhm.
Here I am doing a podcast with a book, speaking out loud to hundreds and thousands of people.
Which
and
I'm
all that.
grateful for. Thank you.
No, but it took a long time,
Mm.
and so what I did was I said, okay, now I flunked English in high school. Now, if you flunk English, yeah,
I hated it.
you can't graduate. So God rest his soul, my English teacher, Mr. Dean. If he ever knew I wrote 2 books, he'd turn around and roll around his grave. But and I had help with that. But at any rate, so I wrote a chapter called The Wedding, and I gave it to my wife. Now this is years and years later. This is 5 years ago. We've been married 31, 32 years, and she read it and she cried.
I'm sure.
And she says, you got to write this effing book because people need to know that you came from this.